I feel like we've saturated the market with trope. We've taken classic trope and then we've flipped them. And now we're getting to a point where everything's a trope, so nothing is a trope.
Call them the final girl, but they're classic hero's journey. They start naive, they learn things along the way, have to adapt, and then beat the bad guy. It's no different.
If you go back to cave drawings, back to the Iliad and the Odyssey, if every kind of foundational story that we had, it was almost exclusively the hero, not the heroine.
If there is an undiscovered country in the fork of the road to the left, I'm all like, and there's a perfectly well-developed trope tunnel to the right, I'm cranking that steering wheel to the right.
And welcome to Writing Prose, episode 17.
Hello, everybody!
Wow.
Oh my god, what just happened to your audio quality?
It's fine. Alright, so we have, of course,
the fuck?
Our amazing cast of Gib playing Sai today, Sai playing me, and Eric playing Exhausted.
Hello.
Seriously, Gibby.
Back.
You were so gay that it just overloaded your microphone and just made it sound like a Chewbacca, phlegm roar. Wow.
I'm really glad that we're talking about hooking today.
Hookers do not appreciate
Hooking. We're talking about how do you hook your audience? How do you write something that doesn't suck and drag people into your story, hopefully willingly.
I had heroin, meth.
If there's no sucking involved, we're not hooking. I'm just saying,
Sorry, guys. Sorry.
Not doing it right.
Short episode today again.
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
That was great. Thanks for joining. Yeah, 1 minute, 15 seconds. Holy shit. Let's start with Eric.
No, I was just about to say I'm going to be more of a spectator for this thing because I genuinely don't have any idea. In our offline conversation, you're like, how do you not do something that is pretty boilerplate or
well, that's what I said.
Typical.
Yeah, I said, how do you avoid the tropes?
Yes, and I was like, I don't. If there's a trope over there, if there's a trope tunnel, I'm driving through it.
Eric just leans into the trope. He's like, this is where I will make my story.
If there is an undiscovered country in the fork of the road to the left, and I'm all like, and there's a perfectly well-developed trope tunnel to the right, that's not a choice. I'm cranking that steering wheel to the right and putting all my
flooring
weight on the gas pedal. I'm like, I do not avoid tropes. So I was like, allow me to listen to people who know what they're doing. And
well, that's a good point. That's a good point. So then do you use your art to hook?
Yes, I was just about to say that, which is I tried to overcompensate with art, right? Which is like, hey, this is a typical story. It's a small, eastern town, and there's a shark killing people. But I'm going to draw the shit out of that shark, and I'm going to make it more bloody than what you've seen. It's still a trope. It's still a monster in the house, right?
Right.
But I just give you the visual.
There's a shark in the house? Holy shit.
Yeah. That's how I do it. I take it out of the ocean.
Take it out of the ocean, give it some pants.
I just like the idea of a shark living in
it walks onto
an
the
apartment.
shore.
Wasn't there one of the Flash's nemesis was King Shark or something like that?
Shark.
And he was he fought on land.
Yes.
He was a shark man.
Yeah, he had human legs and a shark head.
Yeah.
Did he even have arms?
Which is I don't sidestep tropes. I lean into it and overcompensate with art.
Oh my god.
Well, so I think that it's really, really hard to avoid tropes because depending on what you're writing, everything is a trope.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
To that point, when I use the term, there's a monster in the house, that's like a very Save the Cat sort of, here are the plot things that you see in feature films all the time. They broke it down to 10 of them, Monster in the House is one of them. Jaws is technically a monster in the house story, right?
Yeah. Well, and so that's the thing is like because I think of my like choice of writing. I like to try and write things that aren't super expected. That you're not going to like read the first 2 pages and know the ending of the full story. You know what I mean? That's and there's nothing wrong with people who write those if you do it well. Like if you're writing a Dick Tracy, the bird doesn't do it well. If you're writing a Dick Tracy-esque story, and we know at the end Dick Tracy's going to get his man, and somehow get swindled out of whatever pay he was supposed to get, because that's typically what seems to happen with these kinds of detective PI stories. As long as the journey through that was entertaining and a lot of things happened, and I couldn't hit every single beat along the way. Like I couldn't tell you who the person was that did it, and this is how they did it, and what they did it with, and with the first like 3 pages, then I don't think it's bad to follow tropes. But I've also noticed I like to try and not subvert expectations, but tell stories that I haven't read a lot of, and they become their own tropes. Like if you want to have a strong female lead, that's really hard to do because it's been done in every possible capacity, in every way. It's been done where she's just like the dudes and gets the shit kicked out of her and has a falling down moment and then rises back up and things are good. It's been done where she's
I'm right here, Shae. Jesus.
Yeah, right.
It's been done where she's overpowered.
Go on.
It's been done where she's a Mary Sue. Like there's so many different ways that it's been done that it's like simply putting the lead, intentionally choosing the lead to be a female character becomes its own trope.
Well, I don't agree at all with that, but
let's hear. I want to get the opposite.
So throughout the history of man, okay, from very early on, when you had
Professor Sai speaks
no
elbow patches and
if you go back to cave drawings, if you go back to the Iliad and the Odyssey, if you go back to every kind of foundational story that we had, it was almost exclusively the hero, not the heroine. So I think that there's much more to discover, much more. I don't want to. Shae does make a good point. Okay, there is almost everything out there if you look hard enough, and that's kind of my mission, is to find the good, strong female protagonist works, but it's so much more intriguing, at least to me as a reader or viewer, to explore that, because I think it's almost too easy for a man to be a hero. You know what I mean? When you think about it, biology has gifted men with physical strength. It's just a fact. Genetically speaking, pound for pound, a man is always going to be stronger than a woman, pound for pound, unless he's just made of fat.
That's me.
The muscles are denser, the bone density.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
All of that.
The thing aside, what size? If I may, size tagging on a certain point, we also have an expectation that, like, a lot of these stories of Gilgamesh, these stories of the Iliad, the Odyssey, these ancient tales, the Roman stories, the Greek stories, usually revolved around warfare or battle, which at the time we predominantly sent men into because.
Right.
Women had to propagate the species. It wasn't out of like, you can't go fight. You can't. I mean, to the Vikings came along, had shield maidens. They said, no, get in there, kick some ass, girl. They were much more progressive for their time, but you needed a certain number of females in back, not in warfare, to keep the tribe going or keep the clan going or keep the whatever thing happened to be. So these stories of conflict and warfare tend to be very male centric, and that is a very salient point that Sai made. Our earliest, I don't know, I can't think off the top of my head what the earliest story of a female-led action story is, but in our mythos, there's every horror movie that's got a slasher in it has a female hero, we just kind of overlook those, the ones that survive. We call them the final girl.
Yeah.
But they're classic hero's journey. They start naive, they learn things along the way, have to adapt, and then beat the bad guy. It's no different than Luke Skywalker or Frodo. It's just in a horror movie. We accept these things, but we get all bent out of shape when we take that same female lead and put them
turn
in,
it to action. Yeah.
Yeah.
For example, did anybody see? Weird. Well, did anybody see Prey on Hulu? I loved that movie, I could wax poetic about that movie for a long time because I'm sick of people calling it this, calling it that, and it isn't. She's not a Mary Sue. She's not the badass. She's actually not that good at being a hunter. She can't pull the metaphorical trigger, and that's her flaw. And as the story goes, like a final girl in any horror movie, she has to learn. And I loved. In the beginning of that movie, have you seen the covers? You see that Native American girl with the war paint on, right?
Yeah.
Well, as the movie goes, this is no spoiler. As the movie goes, like she gets battered around, knocked around. That war paint starts coming off because she's wearing it because she wants to be a hunter. And then by the midpoint of the movie, she's at her lowest point in a river, and it's all gone. It's all washed off. But it's slowly being replaced by scars and cuts. So by the end of the movie, when she puts that war paint back on, she ain't fucking around anymore. She's learned her lessons. And I love that story without telling you this, you see it in visual storytelling from beginning to end, and I thought it was brilliant.
Well, isn't she trying to emulate her like brother or uncle or cousin or something?
Well, the thing is, like she's a skilled healer, right, in the movie. Like her mother's the healer of the tribe, and she's learned a lot of the healing medicines. But she wants to be a hunter, and she's practices constantly, and she's really good at throwing her tomahawk, except when it comes to time to actually do the deed. She says,
when she has to do it to
well, she just says, I almost got a deer today. Right, I almost got a deer today. And Mom says, I can't eat almost. You know, your brother does. Well, your brother does. And every time she's going to kill the cougar, and then she freezes and can't do it. Or she goes to kill the deer, she can't do it, you know. And she learns throughout the course of the movie, like, a lot of different things. And I can't, it's that perfect blend of a horror movie meets action movie. And it's really shot really well.
Well, because the thing that really draws people in and makes you like feel for a character is seeing somebody who is, you know, naive in the beginning, somebody who's ill prepared, and then it becomes a classic underdog story. And that's, if you go and look at really any genre, the most popular stories almost always end up being underdog stories, because most of us are self-deprecating. Most of us don't look at ourselves in the mirror and go, I am the pinnacle of, you know, humanity. I am the most amazing thing that has ever lived, and nothing can tear me down. Most people don't think that. The people that think that usually are
the villain.
Assholes.
They're the villain.
Yes, exactly. And so when you watch something, you have to have something that takes your hero and humanizes them. Like Superman could level everybody if he really wanted to, but he doesn't, because he has a soft spot for humanity, and that is what drives him, is trying to do as little damage as he can to basically what he sees as like, it's his home, but it's also like he's like a guest here. Like he's like, it's that whole idea of when you stay at someone's house, you're like, I'm not gonna put my feet on the sofa because that's rude, and I would do it at my house, but this isn't my house. And like that's kind of how he is with everything, and that's what draws people to him, is because even though he could do all of this, and he clearly knows he could do all of this, like physically, because he's advanced, right? He emotionally and mentally couldn't and wouldn't. And that's what makes him more humble, that makes us draw to him a little bit more.
Well, people don't love him for his powers. They love him for his humanity in spite
exactly. of. For his humanity that technically he shouldn't even have, as he's not human, but he was raised
until the giant robots walking down Metropolis. They don't say, Superman, get over here with your humanity. They don't, get over here with their Mega Strike and punch that motherfucker in the face. You're going to crush...
But that's because those are now threatening humanity.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say. They rely on his compassion and his willingness to put himself
and his
in front of the weak.
No, yes. I'm agreeing with everything you're saying. I'm just being a dick for the sake of being a dick. You're hitting. I mean, the tropes are the tropes, and we say that for a reason. Like Eric said earlier, you know, the monster in the closet or the monster in the house is a classic horror trope. And how do you, if you were going to write a story today about the monster in the closet, what makes yours different? I mean, that everybody knows the monster in the house, but take something like what was that film? Jesus, about to put a big fallacy. Oh, fuck you, Cy.
You're not supposed to read the backstage.
Yes, no.
Yes,
There's going to be a big dick on my face because you put it there. The fans are going to know. All 9 fans. But what I was saying was like, if you're going to have the monster in the house, how do you make it different? And what was the movie where the people break into the guy's house, the blind man, to find out, no, the guy they're robbing is the monster in the house. They went to the wrong house.
Oh, I forgot.
It's a great movie.
It's not See No Evil or Don't Breathe. Don't breathe.
Yeah.
Don't breathe and Don't Breathe too. And like that was a phenomenal twist on that trope or that genre. They found a way to make it unique and stand out. And that's still someone trapped in the house, except it's the bad guys trapped in the house with the good guy, and the good guy is the monster.
It's like from Watchmen. I'm not locked or trapped in here with you. You're trapped in here with me.
100%. You know, and it was, if you haven't seen that flick, watch it. But it's a great way of flipping the trope on its head. So is a Cabin in the Woods. It takes all the tropes and then goes a completely different direction you're not expecting.
I love that.
I can never watch Cabin in the Woods again. It was a phenomenal movie, and I saw it once, and every single time Si's like, do you want to watch it? I'm like, I really don't. Like, I really don't want to watch it again. It was like...
I want to watch it right now. I love that flick.
So bad. I was like, if I watch it, I'm going to be watching so much like cartoon mindless bullshit afterwards just to try and get it out of my head so I can relax.
Pussy.
That's why I like
you
emotional
mean it impacted
stories.
you so like it scared the shit out of you?
Viscerally?
So I have a really, really active imagination, and this is one of the really weird, like, this is it's an oxymoron, because I love horror, but really good horror stories stick with me to the point that I will run through, I am a grown-ass woman, I will run through my house turning lights off, because I'm like, I can't walk. I try to walk through a dark house, and every really fucked up part of a horror film that I remember will start coming out of the woodwork for me.
All right, but to be clear, you're saying horror, right?
Horror.
Fake news.
But no, that's one of the things that I like when people take kind of a standard trope and flip it. But there's so many people expect that now too. So it's almost, I feel like we've saturated the market with tropes because we've taken classic tropes and then we've flipped them so many times that now these are like the new classic tropes. And now we're getting to a point where everything's a trope, so nothing is a trope. Because there's so much going on that you'll have somebody who will watch it and they'll be like, oh, I've seen this before. This is going to be what happens. And someone else will go, no. You're thinking it's that. But what it's going to be is they're going to switch it halfway through and this is what's going to happen. And now it's like, well, there's no longer a clear trope because everything has been done. So it's almost like a level playing field where you get to kind of start over.
What's worse is are the derivatives. You know, when the zombie sensation hit and everything was zombies, you know, but it was cool for a while. But there comes a point where it's like you stop caring about zombies, or Eric, Shae, you might be too young to really appreciate, but I'm sure you've seen like the Naked Gun movies or even Airplane.
How dare you, sir? I loved all of those.
Fantastic.
Amazing.
So what are your thoughts of superhero movie, Scary Movie 3, Scary Movie 4, epic movie? Exactly. It's lampooning that same style of humor, but it's by a certain point when everything's a joke, nothing's a joke. And you need to dole those out every couple of years, otherwise it just becomes you stop caring. You know, like even we've all hit fuck it, I'll say for everybody, we're hitting comic book movie fatigue. I haven't seen.
I'm there.
Yeah.
I love comic books and the stories in them, and I haven't seen a comic book movie like a Marvel DC.
Well, lucky you. I'm the idiot that still keeps going.
5 years, 10
respect,
years.
Gib. Respect.
Yeah, I'm the idiot that keeps on going because I part of me still that little boy with a wizard. Well, no, I'm still that kid with Wizard magazine looking at the casting call section where they would like who would be the perfect actor to play this thing, and now I live in that world where that shit's real, But like Phase 1 Marvel stuff, you had characters like listen, good guy gets powers, stops bad guy, Skybeam. And there was the same thing, but you relied on your characterization. That's how you made your story different. Like Tony Stark, by the brilliant acting of RDJ, was different enough from the comic books and got by on his charisma. The earnestness of Captain America. But we laughed at our characters. You laughed at these men because when they did something stupid, like trying to learn how to fly, smash themselves into the ceiling. Thor I'm the mighty, and he gets hit by a car or gets a shot in the butt that knocks him out. Captain America, like, do you fondue? He doesn't know what fondue is. He's jealous. He thinks they're fucking. We're laughing at these people, and then later, and then some of the other movies come along. You're not allowed to laugh at your characters anymore, and when you're not laughing at them, you get Vin Diesel syndrome. Like he can't lose a fight. You can't laugh at him, and. No one's watching Fast and Furious for Vin. They're watching it for the action, everything else, all the other people, except for the one guy who thinks he's the lead. Because you can't laugh at him and he can't lose a fight, and that's not fun, And when you start doing that in your stories, they become rote, they become boring, they become just it's white noise at a certain background, whether that's in novels or movies. I mean, and also if you have the power fantasy, I'm not going to say the name of the series because I don't want to give it any love. My wife was an editor briefly for it. When I was early in my indie career, she was doing some editing work for another. Some people, and we affectionately refer to this book series as The Adventures of Big Dick Bruce, because the lead guy, it's during the zombie phase. So this lead character, he's after the zombie outbreak, former Army Ranger, 6'4", muscle, had 3 wives, and they all would talk about the size. And they would talk about the size of his penis and how he could satisfy all of them. And like he was the one who would plow into all these zombies and save everybody's life. Oh, no, this is a book series. And like I said, I'm not giving it any credit, but we just referred to it as The Adventures of Big Dick. It was a job. She just edited it for money.
Fair. Hey, and good on you on getting that paycheck, girl, because I would have
made a few $100 per book to like edit the damn thing. But it was just.
So it was a Gary Stew.
It was a Gary Stew, and that's the point. Like when you have a raging power fantasy, male or female, it doesn't matter. There are people who want that. There truly are. There truly are people who want that kind of like because it's like the same people probably that jerk off to MMA. Like I don't know. It's like they want that in their life. Well, they think they're 2 push-ups away from entering the cage. Those type of guys. Like back in the day, everybody who wear the tap-out shirt, and the affliction and like.
Hey, well, hold up! I have affliction.
Are you still wearing it?
My mom just bought me one the last time I went back.
I'm turning both of you down. You guys are getting way too fucking excited.
Well, I'll move further back. I will yell from over here. But but those are the type of things I'm saying. There are people who do want those stories, and it's a smaller crowd.
Yes.
The other thing is know your audience. If your audience wants this, keep giving it to them until they don't want it anymore.
And you enjoy writing it. If your audience wants it, and you can write it, because I can't write something that I don't enjoy doing. I know plenty of people can. People can write horrible tripe that they really dislike, but damn if it doesn't pay the bills.
Well, there's an entire group on Facebook that talks specifically about how to like how X many novels equals this much money, how you can live off of it, and a lot of it's romance writing. Crank out a novelette every month, every 45 days. Charge this much, and people buy it because there are legions of fans waiting to consume new smut, but it pays the bills.
It does.
I like the term new smut.
Yeah, new smut. Yeah.
I'll be here all afternoon, you guys.
That's Eric's contribution.
I haven't been on the show for a while, but anytime I hear terms like new smut, I'm not helpful. I'm not helpful.
No, you have no idea because every time you do this, I always just blast it up on the screen really big.
All right.
Wait, I'm sitting here with
out, right? What's the thing that we were talking about? I think the original point we were trying to get at was like, what's the hook, right? And has it gotten to the point where there's so much, and this is very cynical, take it with a grain of salt, has it become so mediocre out there that just to write something as complete as Top Gun Maverick, now it's a standout. Do you know what I mean? Like, I watched that movie and I thought, like, this is entertaining as heck. There's no getting around it. But this isn't any better than the first one. It's just really well put together. Everything makes sense. All the characters make sense. But
from what I understood about it, it stayed true to everything about the original.
Yes.
And it gave the characters more depth.
But do you see what I mean? That should be almost as straight, like, hey, does this make sense? Does this stay true to the original material? Does this, like, has there been so much mediocrity or missing dead center as far as, like, these basic?
I think it's all the above, Eric.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah, it's like a home run when this would have been a ground ball, back in the day.
Well, here's the thing. It would have been a ground ball in 2002 to 2010. And the last, it would have been like, hey, it's a new Maverick movie, because I wrote a piece it was right around the time of Deadpool. I wrote a piece about beginnings of comic fatigue, and granted, we've come many years since then, but I looked back on I just used movies, and back in the 70s, we had a lot of like post-war movies meeting spaghetti westerns. When the war movies started dying out, the westerns took over. But what always happened was you had solid westerns that turned into the spaghetti westerns, which turned into the weirder and weirder westerns. And then sci-fi kind of took a small blip, Star Wars, but then the derivatives were really bad. But in the 90s, during our growing up era, it was buddy cop. Late 80s to late 90s, it was cop action. Because they're basically superheroes without powers. But then the cop action started getting a little boring, and then they started like Tango and Cashing It, or Turner and Hooching It, or Theodore Rex, Kindergarten Cop, or when Whoopi Goldberg was a cop with a exactly. She was a cop with a dinosaur, and it's like,
what the fuck? I forgot about that.
Oh yeah, I think it was a Theodore Rex maybe, but it's. My point is, like, the well had gone really, really dry, and on that type of action. So
they were digging under the well.
Right. So when X-Men hit in 2000, and like comics were like basically was like trying to start your car in second gear. It was hiccuping. But when the MCU hit in 2008, I mean, Batman, obviously the Nolan movies hit it harder, and then the MCU took it the next step further. But we're reaching those exact same things now when like you're running out of ideas for singles. You have to start pairing people up. You need to start aping other genres in your comic thing, and the pattern is starting to repeat itself. So bring Maverick to now, where we're over all that shit. We love it, sorta. It still makes money, but shit, this is a breath of fresh air. It's the same like way when John Wick hit and didn't do well in the theaters, but made mega money on the secondary market on DVD and Blu-ray sales. That it greenlit 2, 3, and 4 because, oh my God, we just missed a solid action movie that was just, hey, here's dumb fun,
And the budget wasn't outlandish.
Right. It wasn't it's like a $40 million movie that just looked cool and did cool shit, and everything was practical.
And they did a really good job of using what they had at their disposal. Like, most of what they did in John Wick hit so good because they had a really good cinematography team that would get the right angles, the right shots, the right follow through and everything. And all of that immersed you so much into the center of all of the action instead of feeling like you're standing 200 yards away looking in. That it made you feel like you were more experiencing it. And that doesn't, all that requires is you getting good people on those cameras and
you had
director
a stunt
producer.
Team. You had a
the
stunt
choreography
turned a stunt team turned directors. They had this idea. The same thing.
Exactly.
Same guy wrote the movie. I can't remember the actor's name. It'll come to me. Odenkirk. The guy. It's Better Call Saul. There's a great movie they did called Nobody, and it's the same John Wick team, and it's similar-esque vibe, but it is a solid movie if you ever seen it. And these little rises of these type of like $30 to $60 million movies where you have just a cool story, cool action, cool practical effects, and cool follow through. I mean, it's not reinventing the wheel. It's still a tough guy or tough gal doing tough people things. But the stories are small. They're not trying to save the world. They're just trying to get to day 3, or they're trying to like save the cat, or they're trying to do the small whatever, stop the Russian mob from invading the street. Whatever the smaller contained thing is, it's resonating because when you save the world for the 100th time, you're like I feel like Mr. Incredible. Like just I just saved it. Can you just maybe stay safe for like an hour? You know, that'd be great. You know,
Right.
Good point.
So one of the things that I was, you know, kind of thinking about looking at all of these stories that we're talking about and kind of how tropes play into it. Like I said, I really like to try and tell stories that I feel like haven't been told. And granted, a lot of them I am looking for the what would be the shocking part of this. But it's not so much shocking as like, you know, gonna be outrageous or anything. Just one of those things that like, okay, a good example. I have an entire series that has been pinging around in my head that I wanted to do that was going to be all about various issues with mental health. But and they're all going to be, you know, graphic novel, comic style. The idea is to be able to kind of tap into what a lot of the people who suffer from these feel, or the people who love them and are near them feel, without getting crazy heavy handed or anything, or getting really outlandish. Because a lot of people seem to think like when you're talking things like OCD or depression, that it looks a very specific way. And being able to show those same aspects that people who are suffering from them, but show it in a different light, just to try and get people talking more, and to have it be like a resource that people could use to try and open those conversations with friends and family. But that means taking things like somebody suffering from PTSD. Whenever you say that, the first thing that people think is a man in his 30s or 40s, who served in the military or served in the police force. That's usually where people's minds go when you say PTSD. So I was like, oh, what if we made it a 65-year-old woman? Because they suffer from PTSD too. And, you know, what if we did it where she didn't have a whole bunch of military experience that created this situation? She had a different traumatic experience that gave her PTSD. Like, you know, being a medic or something.
Or
Like
she, you know, was at the next table when my ex went to a buffet.
But I mean, the idea is like the subverting expectations like that has almost become its own trope. And so one of the things that has kept me from writing a lot of this is it's really difficult to write something like this and not immediately turn off or frustrate the audience that you're hoping to reach, because I'm hoping to reach basically general public, right? I want it to be something that anyone who is curious about those kinds of things can read up on this series and kind of see it play out in a day-to-day life of one person, and having me turn it and be like, instead of it being a dude, it's gonna be a chick. Instead of him being, you know, 30, she's gonna be 65. And now everyone's like, fuck this. This is just gonna get preachy. And it's like, it's not though. That's not the point. The point is to change what it looks like, you know, show a man who's suffering from depression and have it not be because he's bad at his job. Maybe he's fucking phenomenal at his job. Maybe he just has depression. Or like Gib has said before, like eating disorders. Everybody thinks it's a fucking teenager. They always think it's a teenage girl. It can very easily be a grown man. And there's no reason that, like, the idea is to try and show all those different sides of it. And so people stop thinking that everything is just in this one little box and these are the only people that are at risk for whatever, and to get people to talk about things more, because that's what's been shown to help. But it gets really difficult when you're subverting expectations to an uncomfortable degree to still have a hook that is going to get people to read it. Because if nobody reads it, it doesn't matter what I write.
Well, I mean, it matters to you. It just doesn't matter commercially.
But that's what I'm saying. If the point of my writing, like, yes, I love writing for me, right? But clearly, I'm already somewhat tapped into a lot of this stuff with mental health and all that. I've done a lot of work with various agency organizations and, you know, my own experiences, my own friends, things like that. I'm already on board. I want to produce something that is going to help other people understand more. And so if other people don't read it, then I've not met my goal in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, it's got a lot. I think it's got a lot to do. I mean, there's a couple of things there. One, I think that's a worthwhile exercise. The I think the reason why, and this is in part, not in whole, the reason why people don't delve into the version of PTSD that you're talking about or eating disorders that you're talking about is because it's asking the audience. It's asking the audience for an equity of trust that I think is super taxing up front.
Yeah,
right, for your story that you're saying. It's not impossible. It just takes more work, right? So
it does.
I think the reason why those tropes exist in movies, the ones that you described, is because it's easy to get them to buy in really quick. And within those tropes, they operate on introducing something new, right? So there's a couple of things where, as an audience, I think if it's an exercise of garnering audience trust, that's why Nolan does like a Batman movie, or a oh gosh, what is the one where it's DiCaprio's is Inception, right? Like he does an Inception to gain people's trust as far as him as a filmmaker, but then he'll go do something like Tenet, which is it's asking a lot out of your audience, like a lot, like the concept of Tenet, it's so far out there where you cover it with as much, is it fondant? The thing that you cover the cake with?
Yeah,
like
fondant.
You cover it with as much sort of like easily, well, fondant's not really digestible, but like you cover it with as much sugar as you can with like you wrap it with a sugar wrapper, which is like the action blowing up stuff, because at its core, you're like, your audience if you opened with this, if this was the first one out of your pocket as a movie, people are not going to be on board for this, because if you go way back, he did the what is the one with Guy Pearce, the one where he was writing notes all
Memento.
over his body. Memento. Memento is so
dope movie.
Yeah, it is, but it's so like he's asking so much out of an audience.
Oh yeah,
Memento, right? So I think it's that balance. So that's more of a strategy, less of the subject matter. Like, how do I get people to buy in? Let me deliver it for them, something that I know for sure that they'll get on board with very quickly, and then do this version or do this story that is not as easily digestible.
Yeah, and I think that timing really matters in a lot of those things.
That's what I was going to say. Shae said it first.
Sorry.
Memento was no. It's you hit the nail on the head. Like Memento, for an example, came out at a time, and it wasn't a blockbuster. It was a diamond in the rough against a sea of other average things. Like most, we are saturated. We are saturated.
Oh, yeah.
We were saturated before the internet. It just made it just that we were ankles deep, and now we're crotch deep and just stuff.
Yeah.
And Memento was one of the movies that kind of like was a blip. This is just something different, and like it got him a little bit more notoriety. So when he went along to make the Batman or the Prestige or the other movies, it's like, oh, we have a little bit more trust in that. But go back to like Blade Runner. That movie, if you have to open with a crawl to explain your world to the audience, that's asking a lot of trust. And like there's usually a big no-no in filmmaking, but Blade Runner was not a commercial hit in its day. It had a cult following afterwards that said, this is genius, and all the Han Solo in the world couldn't save it commercially at the time, but it had all the insight, all the ideas, all these things. And it's also based off a Philip K. Dick novel. They try to take, or novelette, they try to take this small story and turn it into something bigger, but the level of trust you need the audience to come on board was a lot. It's a lot of heavy lifting.
Yeah.
But
and to your point,
sometimes it's worth it.
To your point of timing, I don't think they'll ever, in this day and age, they'd never make a Blade Runner movie, right? Like that version of a Blade Runner.
No.
Movie. That's the reason why they leveraged its notoriety as much as it was with this most recent one. But as it was, Hollywood is risk averse now, right?
Yes.
Not so much as it was back in the day, or else Aliens wouldn't have been made, or Alien wouldn't have been made, But I really believe, to your guys' point, timing is critical, And right now, if you like, at one point, maybe 5 years ago, 6 years ago, they said, "Oh, let's go make more superhero movies." People will be listening to you. You start looking at how superhero movies have been trending, and I don't think it's positive. I don't think it's catastrophic, but I definitely don't think it's positive.
No.
To ask somebody, "Hey, make another big budget superhero movie," I don't think you get that made anymore. So it's got to be something else these days.
If someone brings up making a superhero movie now, the next question that's invariably going to be asked is, how can we make it different? Because there's been so many of them at this point, and that's kind of what makes me both happy and sad about the Flash movie. And Jesus Christ, can Ezra Miller just fucking stop, turn himself in?
Please.
But I mean, they were bringing so many different elements and different things into it, like Michael Keaton's Batman, Sasha Calle, I think her name is, as Superwoman, I think, and all this other stuff. And it's like, okay, this has the potential to be something interesting on the DC side of things. You know, it's not just going to be, you know, random villain number 4 like Zod or you know, just any of the Wonder Woman bullshit. It actually has a chance of being something interesting, and it's the people cannot just get out of their own way to have a good movie.
Yeah.
But the point is, you got to ask that question: what's going to be different about this? And to Shae's point, what she was saying earlier about, you know, a lot of the stuff being played out. Yeah, but then you have to take that story that we know, that maybe we love, maybe we have just tolerated at this point because it's been told so many times, and you gotta grab it and you gotta spin it 90 degrees and tell it from that angle. You know what I mean? Like, maybe we've heard this hero story, but have we heard it from this angle before? You know what I mean? And I think that there's a lot of truth and exploration that can occur when you shift that point of view, that perspective, especially when you're dealing with flawed characters and stories that don't shy away from showing those flaws, and how an actual person of good moral fiber overcomes those things. They don't hide from it. They don't you know, try to minimize it. They say, look, this is who I am. This is what I've done. How do I make myself better on top of that?
Absolutely.
One of the other things we need to be aware of is our own personal pretentiousness. And
yes, that's a good point.
Because most people, and I'm speaking out of my ass, I have no data to back this up, most people turn to television, movies, and some novels as junk food and as comfort food. They're not looking for a great revelation. They're not looking for a deep philosophical meaning and here. No, I just want to be entertained for X amount of time, you know. And the entertainment gods know this. So every once in a while, you will latch onto a character or a series or a movie or whatever, and feel more, read more into it, and love it more than maybe it deserves. But most of the time, people truly just want comfort food. I mean, all those years collecting, like, you know, floppy comics, it was just my monthly fix. You know, every once in a while, a story would get me. But like, oh, that's some cool art. Oh, that's a cool line. But not much happened this month, and not much is going to happen next month, and the month after that, more of the same, until we get to the annual or the crossover event or the whatever. Right. And but every once in a while, you get the Killing Joke, or you get, you know, I'm trying to think of some other, like, just stand out, like, one moments in time. But that's a perfect example. You get these things that, like, it breaks the norm, it breaks the monotony, and it stands out. But when everything's a Killing Joke, nothing's a Killing Joke. And
when everything's crisis, nothing's crisis.
Right. So sometimes people just want that familiarity. How many times do you rewatch the same movie? I do it a lot. Or watch a show I've already seen. My wife's like, why are you watching this? You've already seen it. I said, why are you listening to that song again? You've already heard it.
Why are you singing that song for the third fucking week in a row, like you were telling me?
She's not here, so I can say that, yeah. But it was like, just because the thing she enjoys is 3.5 minutes long and mine's 2 hours long, that's just semantics. That's just a numbers. Right. It brings me the same amount of joy as that you listening to that same song, or listening to that same song on repeat. And that's sometimes what people want. So somebody wants the hard-boiled detective over, like back in the old like Mickey Spillane and Mike Hammer books and like the fantastic. You can take that hardboiled detective and throw it anywhere, and it would look cool. You know, there's this one series books, I want to say it's from the 70s and maybe in the 80s, called the Garrett Files, and it was about a private detective in a fantasy world. You know, they were a warrior, thief, rogue, but they ran a detective agency in a fantasy setting. Now, this book did not hit people. I mean, people barely know about it. But if that hit today, people are like, "Oh, that's so different." It's not Jim Butcher, the Butcher. Where it's like it's in a fantasy setting. Go to like, you know, if you went to like Game of Thrones and there was like a entire detective agency about some guy getting beat up and like having to do the same hardboiled detective things, be a fun story. But that's how you have to like, hey, take two tropes and blend together. And maybe you'll come up with something fun. Maybe you won't. But bear in mind, most folks just want comfort food. And great point. Once you've consumed so much cake, I want pie now.
Cake.
You know, or can I have some chicken wings instead of cake? Just something different, please. And just a new kind of junk food.
Well, and one thing that I was going to say that I think is something a lot of people overlook. You don't get to choose what your audience is going to resonate with the most. Gib has said this before. One of his favorite series to write is not his most popular series. Not by a long shot. Which is my favorite series to read is your favorite series to write, and I am upset that is not the overall popular.
It's also my highest rated one. Like the least amount of 3 stars. It's almost all 4s and 5s, so people just resonate with the story, but it's not ubiquitous.
It just doesn't get out to as many people.
Yeah,
right. It's the one with all the dick jokes gets out to people. You know,
Technomancer.
No, well, no, it's the villain stuff. The Technomancer right behind it, but the villain stuff is number one because it's like it's stupid humor that just picks and picks and picks. But I want to write some drama.
Drunk food, like of all of your books, the most junk food book that you have is your villain series by far, because it's 100%. literally a book full of like one-liner quips and just really cynical lines and really unlikable characters that are just so fucking funny. And so it's a whole lot of just quick. When I'm at work, I started listening to the villain series because I finished.
Oh, good.
I finished where we are with Aggie, so I have to wait for the next one. So I started listening to the villain series, and I found that is far easier for me to listen to and still work because I don't have to dedicate a lot of brain power to it. It's gonna tell me things like blatantly, be like, "Oh,
I ran that book through one of those scanners where it's like we briefly, when I was with my old publisher, we briefly played for one of those kind of like intuitive learning kind of like grammar checker kind of bullshit things, and it said 6.5 grade level. That's what this book was written at, you know. And I was like, you know what, that fucking fits, because that's
fair. Don't give it to somebody in 6th grade by any means. It's not the content is not appropriate. But
listen, butts and jokes are fun for everybody. So okay.
But the thing that I think is really funny is like I look at it this way. I know going into a lot of the things that I want to write, I know that I have a very particular brand of writing. I know that there is a very particular audience. And when we're talking mass appeal, I'm probably not that. But I'm not that as a human being. Like, I do not appeal to the masses. I appeal to people who want to take the time to get to know me. So that's what my writing reflects. And if you are really honest with yourself about where you are as a writer, write the stories that you want to write. Who cares if it follows a trope? Tell the story that makes you proud, that makes you happy to tell it. And even if you release it and it's crickets, that doesn't mean that it's not going to become a smash hit down the line, especially if you start doing more things that get a little bit more visibility, notoriety. People delve into your back catalog when they really like you as a writer. And that's where a lot of stuff could end up being, you know, that's how we get cult classics. So when it comes to writing, as as a person, I say the best thing that you can do is write where your heart is. If you are in it for the story and you like what you're doing, or you're in it because it's mass marketable and you like doing that, like that works for you, that's what you need to do.
To piggyback on what you said, a couple weeks ago, I was at the Authors and Dragons Con. I was a guest down there, and it was very nice. And I got to hang out with a lot of indie authors that I've been a fan of for a number of years, and actually just get to know them as people. Actually have drinks, have dinner, not just talk shop and not talk bullshit, just to talk. And one of the things, whenever I was feeling a little frustrated after some of my own writing stuff, they say, "Hey, listen, man, unless you have a time machine to go back to 2010." And start when I started, because it was like before all the internet hit with Create Space and these websites and all these things that I started building my following, and then Amazon made it so much easier. You can't, so don't try to copy. And this is the same advice I give anybody else. Don't copy someone else's style, because you're just bringing more of the same into the world. Like she said, bring your own voice to it. Bring the story you want to tell. Tell it the best way you know how, and your audience will find you. But if you're just writing another thing that's like, I'm gonna write another zombie movie. Okay, but what makes yours different? Yeah. And don't be afraid to lean into your differences. When I was writing the Technomancer books, it's a hodgepodge of things, but it could easily fall into just generic urban fantasy by some people. So I had to throw my brand of humor from time to time just to make the character a little bit different, and it makes Cy laugh. So that makes me happy. So,
dick joke.
Well,
look, I love Technomancer because it's sci-fi, it's cyborgs, it's fucking cool weapons, it's funny people, but it's also pop culture references.
I was going to go with the human drama, but sure, we'll go with that too.
Gib, do you still have the list?
Would you rather's? I've got plenty of them. Okay, we'll start since Eric's got to roll soon. Eric, give me a number between 1 and 77.
15.
15. Scroll back up. Did we use 15 yet? We have not.
Hey.
All right. Would you rather accidentally
I choose a knife and I'm going to stab each member of my family.
And then we're done. That's it. The answer.
This is why I call you the family butcher, by the way, Eric.
Sorry.
Continue, Gib.
Would you rather like an old photo of your ex on Instagram, or accidentally send a sex picture to your mom?
Oh, that's a great one. I would rather send a sex photo to my mother.
I feel the same. Oh my god.
I think so
Mom,
too.
This is my dick. I'd rather just like an ex's.
No, Mom.
Picture,
these are my tits.
Yeah, there was that too.
Yeah, definitely that second one, because I would love to confuse the shit out of my mom.
I feel like if I did that... That
is interesting, Eric, but I do not want to see your small pee-pee. Okay.
Oh my god. Where's your mom from, Eric, with that accent? The Philippines.
My mom.
That's Philippine, yeah.
My mom would just be like, "Okay, sweetie, I don't think you meant to send that to me," and be like, "Oh, oops." She'd be like, "We just won't speak of this."
No, I was hoping for a grade.
She'd be like, "Why did both my daughters get big boobs? This is unfair." Like,
all right, Shae, number between 1 and 77.
Let's do 9.
9, okay. Would you rather sneeze every time you say hello, or pee a little bit every time you ask a question?
Sneeze.
Okay.
So easy. I would so much rather sneeze. Especially because I don't say hello very often.
I should have tweaked this like every time someone says hi to you.
Oh, fuck, yeah. It's
No. Every time someone says ma'am.
Well,
all right.
Well, when I'm not in the military, that would go way, way down.
I know, but for the next...
all the time, as opposed to manned.
For the next over 3 years, though, you're fucked.
All right, Cy, you're up. 177.
Shae picked 9.
Yes.
I will pick 6.
Okay.
Eric got it.
I'm a fucking child.
No, you're not a child.
Too.
Little heel.
Would you rather only be able to whisper or only be able to shout?
Oh, good fuck.
Whisper.
Thank goodness.
Okay.
I was like, that had better be your answer.
I'm a naturally quiet person, so I think that would, that'd be very on brand.
I talked quieter for this whole answer.
I'm a natural.
So pick one for me, between 1 and 77.
Eric, pick one.
77.
Oh shit!
It's already taken.
Okay. No,
That's
I
taken?
dropped 78. Okay, no, we didn't. I dropped 78 off because it's already taken. So why give a number? We already did.
Hey.
Okay. Would I rather date someone who doesn't get my favorite movie, or someone who can't stand my music? I married that woman. That's both. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
She
Right, that's just your wife.
she hates my music and she hates my movie, so it doesn't matter. But if I had to pick between the one or the two, you know what? The movie, because I'm going to watch it. You're going to leave the room, so I'm going to watch it regardless. Without I don't know about anybody else's mom when they watch a movie. It's like, what's going on? Who's that person? What's that going on? Like, watch the fucking movie and all the answers will come. Just shut up.
But you can't date somebody who's going to constantly argue with you in the car over what you have on.
Yeah.
That's the
my wife,
difference.
whenever I like if I was going to Dropkick Murphy, she'll say, "Are you playing that Celtic Crap Storm music again?" I'm like, yes.
Oh,
I'm playing the Celtic Crap Storm music, Valerie.
Wow, Gib.
Oh, that is a perfect note to wrap on. So thank you, everybody,
Shae,
for
I am so thankful. You love my movies and my music. I am so thankful.
Thank you so much for hanging out with us. Do not forget to like, share, and subscribe to Red Valkyrie. Ding the bell so you get those notifications. And if you want to submit any of your works, feel free to send it to redvalkyrie.writingprose@gmail.com. And we will see you guys next week.
Buy my books.
bye.
Bye, my books.
Goodbye.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining us for another episode of Writing Prose. If you enjoyed our content, then you know the drill. Please like, share, and subscribe. If you want to support us in other ways, then you can always become a channel member or shop our merch store. Red Valkyrie is currently accepting anonymous, fan-submitted stories for their on-air review later in the season. So if you want some feedback, send your submissions to redvalkyrie.writingprose@gmail.com. We'll see you next time.